We'll call the Ordinance Committee meeting to order at 6:30. Would you call the roll, please? Carla?
Counselor Tilton,
Here.
Crumpets,
Here.
Dobos, Labrie,
Here.
Roy.
Here. Also present is our attorney, Harvey, our chairperson, Frank LaFlamme, Bill Cushane from Ward 7, Bob Zagorowski at large, our engineer and our vital effort guy at the central office and DPW, Mr. Boyle is here, and Mr. Barron from the building department. And anybody I forgot? No, the police chief is here. And I guess that's it. Did I miss anybody? Our ex-counselor from Ward 9 is here, Mr. Walzak. I guess I got everybody. Our first order of business, I gotta pass these out. This is from the lady in Ward 7. Is this, yeah, 7. Yeah, nobody's on Zoom. I just thought I said it, but I'll say it again. Yep. I just asked the gentleman.
Test. Mic test.
Buddy? Who do you want to go to? Everybody? I'll hand them off to you so you can do your thing. Just us.
As far as they'll go. I forgot to hold it myself.
Yeah. You can have mine, I have the original.
Okay.
If that's the email.
So we'll save one for Dan Garvey if you. And we call the roll? Yep. Anybody taping this meeting or video taping this meeting?
We are.
Yeah. City is, yes. We'll return to the regular order of business here. This is Article 1. This is the situation on Thomas Street. Most of you are familiar with the lady that came in periodically and was concerned about a no parking sign in front of her house. And this is her, the poor lady now, unfortunately, is in the hospital, so she couldn't make it tonight. And this is the information that she wanted us to have. Yeah, the order that in Thomas Street in the area of CEL pole 15 and 2 IPP, parking prohibited between signs. This was tabled from the last meeting because we had some questions, and for when Bill couldn't make it for whatever reason. It was summertime, and we had to schedule a meeting when we at the convenience of trying to get a quorum. So, Bill, you want to say something? That picture you got is worth 1,000 words.
The reason it was tabled from last meeting was nobody could understand what I was trying to do, so I figured I'd make it easy.
Yeah.
So the question was putting a sign on we're trying to use telephone poles where we can eliminate a lot of expense and time. So the closest pole to her property is on the adjacent neighbors. But if you look at it, you can't park between there anyway because there's 4 inches between her property and his. He has a driveway, and this distance between the pole and the driveway is illegal to park anyway. So it doesn't affect him in any which way. It actually may help him because people will be able to block his driveway. This all stems because of the illegal, what I believe is an alleged illegal auto repair shop that's been operating for about 4 years now across the street from her. And they fill up in front of her house She has an ambulance that can't park in the driveway because she's confined to a wheelchair, so she has to get to the street to get on the van because she has a steep driveway. So that's why she's looking for that no parking so that the ambulance can pull up in front of her house, because it's a larger share van. So that it can pull up in front of our, or if she needs an ambulance, they can get her in and out fast enough.
Yeah.
So, going on 3 years now, I think, trying to get this sign up, and I know the auto repair shop's been operating for 3 to 4 years now that I've been trying to get it taken care of. So, at least we'll give her some peace of mind by getting those signs up, and she still has to deal with the bad neighbor, but
Yeah, the engineer's here, if you want him to speak?
Yeah, I mean, from a road safety standpoint, I don't see a reason to have, if there's an issue on the street, it should be no parking one side or the other, what have you. I mean, if someone's running something illegal that they wanna put the sign up. I mean, I just have to look at it from the
no,
street
and I agree with them.
That's why I say,
Technically,
that's why I say
there's
what
no
I do.
legal aspect for it, but we're trying to
Yeah.
help out a constituent.
Yeah.
That's all. But I agree
Now
with him.
it's beyond what.
Right, we
what
both
my-
agreed on that years ago when we went out there. And I conveyed that to her, but we're just trying to make that one exception. It's gonna be temporary, unfortunately, but don't know how temporary.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
So I was there today at about 4 o'clock, and, because I know we've had a problem with this. And, I've got pictures, and I counted, I think there was, 7 cars and a big trailer in the street in front of her house. And then there was one car pulled into her house, sticking its back end out of the driveway, maybe 2 or 3 feet beyond the other cars in line. And they had 3 cars in line, and I saw a gentleman wheeling a, cart full of tools, like a Snap-on cart, down the driveway, and I saw 2 other people working on cars in different spots in the yard. And I counted a total of 15 cars between the street and the driveway and the yard. So I think this could be a temporary issue for this woman, because I would not put up with that. I hope she's calling the police at every opportunity, but I don't think there's anything they could do. I think it has to come from building. So if we request our building commissioner to take a look at it, I don't know if he knew about it when he got on the job. I didn't know.
The owner of that property told me they park it there for, that trailer and truck never leave.
No, you're right, it's always
They're all the
there.
time.
It's legal because it's
And
hitched,
I
so.
honestly, when I'm in that area, I do shoot down the street to see what's up. Knowing your report today, seeing Snap-on tray with tools, I mean, I'm making notes right now as we're speaking.
Yeah.
So I believe I can probably act on it and,
He has employees, because I've sat on that house for hours watching, and I watch the employees leave every day at 4 o'clock. So he has employees,
employees going.
absolutely, because they leave and go and come back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I also, visited this house several times, with, the counselor. And one of the things is the reason I'm voting for this tonight, and I get that, we don't do it everywhere. But when I happened to go down that day, the street's packed with cars, both sides. And doing a one-way, and I'm not sure that's the right thing to do, no parking on one side. But I think when I went down that street, they were trying to help that lady. She was blocking the street for a while, trying to get into the wheelchair, getting out of her car. And to me, that's more of a safety issue for that street than it is temporarily for this issue. We did have the mayor had a neighborhood meeting on Ward 7. She came to Ward 7 and with her whole family and concern for their mother. And I just think we don't do it all the time, but I think this situation occurred just like the building site. There's a trailer there that's never moved, black, so you can hide it. There's cars there with 4 or 5 cars with tarps over all the cars. We don't even know if they're registered. You can only have one registered vehicle. We don't even know if those vehicles are registered. So when it comes time for me to vote, I'm gonna vote for it for a temporary thing, because I think it's more of a safety issue for her to try to get in and out of that vehicle right now on that narrow street. Thank you.
What she's concerned about is an ambulance, going to get an
Correct.
ambulance even into her driveway, if they could get it into the driveway, because the
Yeah.
street is so
Sure.
cluttered.
Oh, yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. So if somebody's parked in front of her house, they'd have to park the ambulance in the middle of the street
That's what the
and
chairman does
plug up the
now.
whole street.
That's
I mean,
right.
so I agree. I think until we get that situation straightened out with all the cars that are being worked on there, and it becomes more of a normal street, the only way that this lady can have an ambulance get in there and out of there is if there's no parking in front of her house. And then if there is no parking in front of her house, then the police department can issue tickets and control it somewhat. But no, they can't. They just park there and.
And if I can just finish, the only other thing I'd like to see done too is, the police chief is here, is have his, staff, his officers, just scroll down and see what's going on for a while. Because the building department can't be there all the time, but we do have, the cruisers in the area. Just look what's going on. Don't, just keep monitoring it, for us. It's bad on that street. We need to do something, but we need the evidence to do it.
I agree.
I'll make a motion if anything is all done.
Well done. Yeah, so anybody else?
Just want to mention, Counselor Lopez is Zoom. She joined Zoom, so I just see her up there.
Anything you want to say, Councilor Lopez?
Name's
None,
not up there. I think she hung up. Her name's not up there.
No, she's on the top,
The top.
No,
That's right.
in the waiting
We
room.
gave her the opportunity. You don't know what else we can do.
Oh, I think she needs to be let in.
Yeah, right, she's not on yet, she's in the waiting room. Oops, IT guy.
She can't get in, Jim.
Okay, then we'll move,
Can I go over and
Can
do
I
it?
make a motion
Can I
to
do it?
approve item 1?
roll call?
Counselor Tilton,
Yes.
Crumpets,
Yes.
Philbos, Labrie,
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
Forget who you're running to.
I had an emergency a little while.
Let her in. Let her in.
So,
Just verify it works.
Councilor Lopez, anything you want to say?
I did it already, Chris.
I think
Let
you
her
have
in.
to turn up the volume though, or
Yep,
something.
no problem. He's just muted.
Councilor Lopez?
Here she
Hi, I was in the waiting room. Hello.
goes.
Do you have anything to say on this
Running?
issue?
I'm sorry?
Do you have anything you would like to say?
Tim,
I literally was just let in, so I don't even know what we're
She couldn't
discussing
hear us
right
while
now.
she's in the waiting room.
I didn't hear her. What did she say?
She was just let in, so.
Okay. All right. We're discussing the, no parking sign for the handicapped lady that comes to several of our meetings,
Thomas Street.
on Thomas Street. And right now, the committee's gonna temporarily at least, go for a no parking sign because there's so much congestion on that street that to get an ambulance in and out of there in front of her house would be a problem. So that's
So
where
a
we're
no-
at this
A no
time.
parking sign rather than a handicap sign?
Well, the handicap sign was already defeated. And, she asked for a no parking sign. She just wants to make sure she can get a place for an ambulance in front of her house because it's difficult to get it into her driveway.
Okay. I mean,
Okay.
we've heard her time and time again discuss this at the council meeting, so, if the counselor of that ward supports that, then I support that.
Yes, he's here to support it. He brought himself a large photograph to show what the issue is on the street, so, okay,
Yep,
so
I support
you're
him.
all set?
Yep, that's
Okay,
all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay. Got it, I don't know what I did with it.
On that.
Okay.
You can sign.
For me favorably, please.
Yep,
Emergency before this meeting.
okay, we'll do, as long as you give me permission.
He ran from all,
Why don't you go in the bathroom?
What's that again?
Counselors Tilton, Crumpets,
Take the roll call again, because Councilor Topaz has just arrived.
Counselors Tilton,
Yes.
Crumpets,
Yes.
Phobos,
Yes.
Labrie,
Yeah.
Roy.
Yes. Bring the sheet over to him?
Yeah, bring the sheet over to him, because, I'm not a very good, falsification.
It's true, might find ourselves in front of another.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. That was unanimous, 5 of us, Roy, Crumpets, Labrie, Tillotson, and Tobas have, agreed to allow this lady to have a no parking sign in front of her house, because of the unique situation that exists on that street. Go ahead, Shoni, need to discuss the issues on Nye Street. We're gonna
Skipping
read,
item 2, or?
I'm on 3, I think, now, aren't we?
Yeah, two.
No, we're on 2.
We did 2. Thomas Street, it was 2.
Thomas Street was 1.
Okay, that's marked wrong.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
2 is about the changing of staffing for the police department.
Okay. Yep, I got pushed in the wrong one, okay. You're right, thank you. Item number 2, the police department of the city of Chicopee shall consist of 1 chief, 5 captains, 7 lieutenants, 19 sergeants, not more than 120 patrolmen, and such number of reserve patrolmen as prescribed by Chapter 314 of the Acts of 1986, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 140, Sections 11 and 12. See if you want to come up. At least, one of the seats if you wish, sure, that's perfect.
Can you hear me? Is that on?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had requested 2 additional sergeant spots due to the expansion of the department. We have an IT department there that we staff with officers to handle freedom of information requests, as well as handle all the software that the police department uses, which, as I mentioned in the meeting before, oftentimes contains very sensitive information that requires an officer to handle. The officer working in there before was Matt Post, who recently was promoted to sergeant. So we had to remove him out of there for a short time to put him back into patrol to learn some basic supervisory skills. But I wanted to put him back in there. He's the right person for the job in there, and I'll probably also be adding another patrolman to the position shortly. So he'll be overseeing 2 patrolmen there. The second position is to facilitate a C3 unit down in Willimantic. That I know the mayor has been very active in getting that taken care of, as well as my intention to fill that down there as well. I think the neighborhood could definitely use C3 policing in the area. I'd like to have a sergeant to oversee that unit as well, and also staff that with 2 additional patrolmen.
Questions? Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, Chief, I understand the 2 sergeants, and I agree with it. But I didn't know we had reserve officers, or is that something that we can have in the future?
We could still have reserve officers down the road. We have eliminated our special police officers, which we had for many years. And that was pretty much due to the recent post commission that was created and the stringent requirements for training time and street time that they have for all officers now.
But a reserve patrolman has to have more training than a special officer, if I'm not correct.
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 Well, right now,
Same.
with the post commission, and the post requirements, basically everybody has to have the same training across the board.
Okay. So right now, though, we have no, reserves.
Correct.
Thank you.
Currently with, what we have, we're currently at, I believe, 105. We're looking to add one into the academy in October. So with the sergeants, if they get promoted, that'll bring us back down to approximately 103. And I, again, asked the mayor to add more staffing for the April academy as well.
Hey, behind you.
I think you were next, weren't you?
Yeah, well, mine's easy. How long is it gonna take to get, how many reserve officers do you have?
How many reserves?
Yeah.
No.
0.
Zero, okay. So you don't have to worry about putting anybody through the bridge academy.
Correct.
So it'll be a couple years before you can even put on a reserve officer,
Correct.
by the time you get everybody through the bridge academy. All right.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chief, for, I called you on this issue because I was concerned of why we needed 2 sergeants, for C3, when we could use 1 sergeant for both. But you'd give a good explanation of why, your process of why you want to do it, and I'm going to support that tonight. And I think putting someone in IT as a sergeant is important too. As you say, the liability of all the information today that the courts are using and the information from our cameras, is a vital one, especially the cameras that, he'll be overseeing those cameras. The C3 in Willimantic, I agree 100%. And one of my comments to you is, when we're short-staffed, what was your intentions with the C3? And you said you would be pulling them out of there if it needed to be used for other, reasons. And I think that's important. Right now, we are at 105. We're going to probably go to 103. We have the budget of 120, and I know you're looking to put more on. So when we get to that position, I think we're going to be in a good position because now we can solve some of the problems with the traffic issues throughout the city of Chicopee. And I know that's one of your main things with the traffic bureau is getting more people out, because throughout the whole city, that's all we hear is traffic issues throughout the city. So I'm glad to hopefully we get to that 120, and I think we'll see a big difference in the city of Chicopee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Couple of questions, Chief. I've spoken to you many a times about the staffing in the police department. I agree with what you want to do with the sergeants and everything else. What is it gonna take to get us up to the 120? I heard what Councilman Laflamme said, but it seems like it's a battlefield to get even near that. If we had 120 patrolmen, certainly that would solve some of your problems on the street.
It would. And it's not just a problem that Chicopee's facing. All the local departments are facing staffing issues right now. And probably the baseline is just the amount of people that are taking the civil service test to get on the department has decreased drastically over the last few years. And some of the candidates that do take the test, when we have to do their background checks, we find information that makes them ineligible to be police officers. So the process of scanning through, doing the background checks, getting the candidates ready, doing a physical fitness test, a psychological test, getting them prepared and hoping that there's enough seats in the academy for us to utilize to get our people in there. Because again, I said all the other departments are battling for those spots as well. So I'm very fortunate that our training department has been very proactive in doing the best that they can, working with HR, working with the candidates. We even have officers that help them to become physically fit by going out and doing the practice test with them over and over again, trying to get them ready to take the actual entry-level exam to get into the academy. We're doing what we can on our part to try and fill the numbers. What it comes down to is just getting people interested in this job again.
I can understand what you're saying. I noticed, like, Councilman Roy brought up about the reserve. If you had, how many officers would be on a reserve program if you could do it?
I'd have to look into it a little bit more. I could probably realistically see 15 to 20 if we were to start a reserve program.
I
That
think.
would allow us to backfill, officers, hopefully alleviate some of the forced overtime issues that we're still having. And while also giving the reserve officers the time they need to get recertified.
There are communities that do use the reserve program, and
Yes.
they draw from that to become
Correct.
regular patrolmen, am I right?
Correct.
All right, so I certainly would support you in trying to do something with the reserve program. I think it's time, because I don't foresee us ever getting to 120. Right now, I don't see it happening.
We are in a good spot. Fortunately, we've come to a time where our retirements have slowed down. We're not forecasting a lot of officers leaving over the next two to 3 years. As I look at the list now, there might be 4, possibly 5, to retire over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. Then once that happens, then we'll start getting back into the higher numbers of the bigger classes that we had in the mid to late 90s, where you're going to see 8, 9, maybe even up to 15 officers all at one time getting ready to walk out the door. But in the near future, we're in a good spot, and if we can keep getting the candidates off the civil service list that just came out, I'm hopeful that we can get up to 120.
All right, talking about the reserve program, does that come off a reserve list also? I mean, a civil service list?
I believe so, yes. I would have
It
to verify that, but I believe it does.
Because I know a couple of communities that's how they keep their staff up
Yes.
with the reserve program, but I didn't know if it was, you had to take the civil service test to become a reserve.
I would have to verify that, but
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you do.
let me know, I'd just be
Okay.
curious to know. All right, thank you, Chief, thank you very much.
Just wanted to give some context to his questions, having, being part of it. So, to your point about how hard it is to get officers on the list. So when I was on the list for many, many years, there was probably 60 people tied for my position. The last list that I saw only had 70 people, period. So we're talking hundreds and then how many of those people do you want to hire too? So that's the hard part for you. And I think, a lot of people don't realize the reserves are gone. The state eliminated those, a year ago now, maybe? So every officer is a full-time accredited officer, which I guess is good for us because we would call them part-time officers if you're going to use them in that respect, but they can go on the street, they can do the job now, like you said, backfilling
Right.
for freezes and stuff. So as much as it hurts a lot of smaller communities, it might be a win-win for us, except now it's going to be longer to get those people trained. Unfortunately, it's a year long now. So, so with the elimination of reserves, it's tough for some cities. I think it's a blessing for us in disguise because if you can get 15 part-time officers, that'd be huge,
It would.
because they can do everything a regular officer does, but we only have to use them when we need them. So, I mean, that's their flexibility for you would be tremendous, I'm sure.
Yep.
But yeah, so it is definitely hard, knowing what the numbers were decades ago to now. Tough.
Thank you for your consideration tonight.
Mary Beth?
Yeah, I just want to thank Chief Major for putting that speed monitor on James Street. Many people have come to me and say, wow, what a terrific idea, because people have been slowing down, and that's made a big impact on their psychological welfare. So thank you for putting
You're
that
welcome.
there.
I'll just see if she wants to. Lopez, anything you want to say?
Can you hear me?
Speaking to the mic, okay. Any questions you want to ask her or anything you want to say?
No, I don't have any questions, but I do support this.
Want to support it, that's all.
I'll give support it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any public?
Yeah, anybody in the public who want to say anything? I thought I'd let the chief talk first so you would know what he's talking about. Hearing none, we'll take the roll call.
Counselor Tillotson,
Yes.
Crumpets,
Yes.
Philbos,
Yes.
Labrie,
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
Yeah, Troy made the motion to approve. It's second automatically by the chair.
I'll just write it. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry.
Got cooties.
The, order passed 5-0. All members present here, supported it. Item 4, be it ordered that the DPW install a missing stop signs at the intersection.
Yeah, you missed
No,
three.
Jim, it's three,
Three. Nice street.
Main Street.
I got it in front of me and I keep going to the other pile. Okay. Order that the ordinance committee meet to discuss the issues on Nye Street. I'd like to turn that over to Attorney Garvey and to, Frank Boron, the building inspector, and our attorney as to the issues here. Deanna, would you go first, please?
Sure, so we received from one of our counselors that there was essentially a jungle gym on a commercial parcel of property that abuts a residential property. So that counselor asked that myself and the building inspector take a look at it to see if it was in violation of any of our city ordinances. And I know, Mr. Boron, who's the building commissioner, is here as well. I know he went out to the site, I believe, at least twice. I looked at his notes, and I believe our conclusion is that unfortunately at this particular point, that jungle gym or playscape is not in violation of any of our current ordinances. If I misspoke, Frank, please let me know.
Have on it, when everybody can hear me? Yes, get back to what Dan was saying. We don't have any set regulations that permit where a jungle gym can be put on a piece of property. The only thing we have in our regulations is in commercial, you need a 6-foot buffer between commercial and residential, which they have, and they have a vinyl fence put up there. The jungle gym, I've been out numerous times. I do have a picture to show some of the other counselors if they want to take an idea and look what the jungle gym looks like with the fencing around it. But there's nothing in the building code that says the permits are required for anything like that. And there's nothing in our city regulations that say it has to be X amount of feet from a residential property. So my hands are kind of tied of what I can enforce on this issue. I dealt with Counselor Walzak in the past on this issue too, and I tried to do my best, and then it just came up again with Counselor Mary Beth Costello brought it to my attention again. I've been working with Mary Beth to try to do the best I can. Spoke with the condo association office manager about it. They said they were gonna try to maybe put some more screen up, maybe some bushes or some aprovites. They haven't done nothing yet. I honestly took a ride out today just to see how things are looking. I took a few photos that were there. There is some screen from the residential property. They have some bushes there, but I'm sure in the fall season and the winter season, all the leaves fall off the tree, that there's, a good visual look over the fence from the residential property. Unfortunately, the residential property is a raised ranch house, so most of the living space is on the second level. So they can get a upper view to see over the fencing. And that's all I really have on that, and there's really nothing I can do to enforce any kind of regulation on it, with the city or with the building code.
Fred.
Through the chair to, so the property that the jungle gym is on, is business property or is that also residential?
It's business property. It's all part of the apartment complex. This is part of an apartment complex.
Okay. All right.
So what's there? You have a little jungle area. They have a swimming pool there, and they have a little picnic area there. And they pulled permits for the swimming pool, which was required, but nothing for the jungle gym.
Okay.
If there was something that was in writing, like for something like this to happen in the future, maybe like a SPRAC review or a planning department review on something like this going against the residential property, might these questions might be answered before this structure goes up in the future. Just trying to give a little bit of my opinion, what I think we might have to do to adjust to make it work for not like this happen again in the future.
All right, thank you. I'm
Yeah.
all set.
Anybody for public input? I forgot. Hearing none?
Hi, thank you. I want to thank, Mr. Frank Boren, Counselor Dobas for co-sponsoring this, request along with Doug Ellis. Doug and I went out there
Yep.
last week.
Yep.
And we talked with the residents at length. It's unfortunate because it's close, not really close to the fence, but close enough where the poor people have to build a little fence up high on their deck for privacy. Because otherwise, when they're in their bedroom, the people that are on the jungle gym can look right into their bedroom. And they've been asking me for something to be done, and I appreciate, because this has been ongoing for many months. But my question is that should we, in the future, look at possibility of a SPRAC review for jungle gyms that go up near private property? I don't know if the board would like to do that, but Councilor Zagorowski went out there, I think, as early as last November. The two of us went out there. So it's something that's gotten a lot of attention and a lot of discussion, but I don't know if we can, and I appreciate you bringing up the fact that maybe in the future, we can do something so people aren't put into a situation where they have to build a little fence on their deck for privacy, because you're right, it's a raised ranch.
Correct, and this is, this could only be, for commercial or business property. Because residential properties, people do a lot of stuff on their own property, they have the right to do that.
Right.
But I'm just thinking in the future, if we have any, trailer parks or condo associations or any apartment complexes that are gonna revamp their area and do some type of swimming pool or, jungle gym or play area, that it probably should come up for review so we can make our comments before it actually happens. Because we're in a situation now where I don't think there's anything we can do. It kind of is what it is. I'm sorry to say that, because I tried my best to look in the building code. I spoke with my state inspector about this, to get her involved, to see if she had any input on it, and she's like, if there's nothing written in our regulations, there's nothing written in the building code that I can enforce for that. I feel their pain. I honestly went out today, because I was in that area, and I drove at the end of Nye Street, and I sat there, and, I mean, you could see when the kids are on the gym. And I could just imagine when they're playing and kids are on the jungle gym, they're having fun, they're yelling and screaming, and, when you're sitting in your private residence, it's pretty hard to relax when you have a lot of that commotion going on. I mean, I wish they would have moved it to the other side of the property. That's why I'm saying in the future, if we could always ask for something like that if it was gonna be a situation, because when businesses but residential properties, I deal with this quite often with screening and complaints and, all kinds of things. So, I just think we just need to be a little bit more on top of, something like this for the future moving forward.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks for everybody that went out there. I mean, there's been a lot of people going to that particular residence since last November. And people have put in a lot of time, and we've tried to fix that problem, but we weren't able to. You want to
Like
speak?
to speak at public input?
Yeah, I just.
Thank you, Counselor. I just want to mention that this is the second time, actually, it happened during my term of office. Carl Dietz and I went up there, took several pictures of the situation, and then we brought it back to the law department for their review. And several of I'm not sure if it was Attorney Garvey or maybe Kevin. It was Chris.
It could have been Chris.
Yeah. So, our perspective is the same result occurred. We did the proper procedures. Unfortunately, the end result was the same thing. There was really nothing we could do. So I just want to bring that perspective that the city did follow the proper procedures and we did what was in the best interest. Thank you.
My question is, since you're the expert, Mr. Boren, should we look into doing a SPRAC review for future, issues like this? Or?
It would be what my recommendations, maybe we could speak with our planning director about it a little bit more, and I can mention it to, Mr. Pouliot to see where we're heading with this, to see if we can, you know, maybe put that on the agenda.
Okay.
So this problem don't happen in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would, entertain sending it for a SPRAC review, and here's the reason why. They have a form that you have to go through every department, police, the fire, and a lot of others. I agree in looking into a process for businesses to do stuff, but I'm not sure a SPRAC review, because in order for them to close out a SPRAC review, they have to follow the same rules. Right, Dan? Doesn't matter if it's the engineer, the police department, the fire department, the DPW, all of them have to get involved. And I think that's a lot of city resources for something, if we do it to a limitation on certain things like that, a different way than the SPRAC review. The SPRAC review is very lengthy and time consuming of staff in the city. But I think you have the right idea, and I think the building commissioner has it too, is come up with a way that anything that's being done is brought forward to whatever it needs to be. Whether it's just the building department and the fire department, or the building department and the engineer, is the process we should use. I wouldn't be in favor of a SPRAC review. I think it's just too lengthy for everybody to get involved in it when they're really not needed.
To move one item.
So, and that's my thing. I think we can look at it in the near future,
Yeah.
and I think we can work together on it, but I'm not in support of a SPRAC review.
If I may, Mr. Tillotson, if I can just, thank you. That playground was put up a long time ago, probably late last summer. And I think once the resident realized that it was blocking their privacy, then they got a little bit anxious. And I can understand that. And that's when Councilor Zagorowski and I immediately took the ride out there to see if we could help them. Obviously, we've tried and we can't, but maybe in the future, I could probably call Mr. Pouliot tomorrow and ask him for some advice in regards to how to proceed, because I think what happened here is that it's cemented in. I don't know if they can move it. I think that's what.
It's installed with cement, so it would be a very intense project to move it.
Right, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Tillotson.
You're welcome.
I just want to have,
Go to Shane.
I think the simplest thing to do is just write an ordinance.
What's that?
Just write an ordinance, so future projects won't do this again. It just, we can write an ordinance limiting where and how and why.
So we leave that up to the attorney.
Right, so I mean, if
He's
you
been
wanna
working
solve the
on
problem,
this
you
case
need to write
for
an
a while.
ordinance, so in that way it's
We'll leave it up
law
to
and they
them.
have to follow it. So that's just my suggestion. It's what I do when I have issues. Write an ordinance.
yeah, I'm not sure an ordinance will do it. Here's my problem. You have a guy that wants to start a business or do something on his property, and he goes to the building department and says, I want to do this, but he doesn't tell them the small things that he wants to do. He wants to put this in there or that. I think it belongs in the building department's list. So when anything goes to the building department, the requirements are theirs to look at. That'll be in there that says if you're going to be putting this in or anything additional to the property, on the property that is so high, so many feet high, that would be in the report. Because if we do an ordinance and I'm building something on I own a business and I don't know the ordinance, not everybody's going to know that ordinance,
We have a
for
lot
that.
of those though, like membrane structures. Who knows that?
Well, I'm talking something like what she's saying. I think in the building, when you build a house, you have to give all that information. So if there's another line item that says any other structures or this that is going to be more than 10 feet high must be approved by the building
I agree with
department.
that, but you need an ordinance to put that in there to make it.
No, you don't. You don't need, he could put that could be put in there. It doesn't need an ordinance for it.
So when this,
Wait a minute, gotta get recognized. We're not gonna have these cross conversations. Who's got the,
I'm not.
you got the
I'm not.
floor, okay. Anybody else? Mr. Boron, you're next.
so I just want to let you know, I was unaware of the playground going in until there was a problem. So there was no permit required, so the building department knew nothing about this. And, because there's nothing saying that they have to contact the building department. So I agree with Councilor Laflamme here that something needs to be done and something needs to be written, hopefully from the councilors, that gives me the authority to enforce this. So I can let these project people know, or these condos or whatever, know if they're gonna be doing any renovations to their property, they do need to reach out to the building department. The reason why I mentioned SPRAC review is because that's when everybody's got their comments and can bring up their points. I know it's just a playground, but, you know, sometimes there's children playing there, and it's about life safety too. But I do understand a SPRAC might be going a little bit too
overboard
much.
for a slidey shoot,
Yeah.
whatever they call it, yeah.
Well, it's just like all the city parks. I know nothing about all the, anything that gets done on the parks with their playgrounds or play sets. But I don't get complaints there because they're not near the residential property.
Yeah.
So this is just one of these awkward situations where an apartment complex try to accommodate their residents and put in a new pool and put a playscape in for the children to play.
Yeah.
It's very pretty if you look at the pictures. It's a very nice area. It's not
Yeah,
good
no,
because it's
I
right
agree.
near that residential property. Mary Beth, you don't mind me asking, is there other people on Ninth Street that complain? I mean, I know she's the only one that abuts that property, but I mean, I've spoken with her. I went to her house. I met with her and spoke with her about it, you know, in the past when I was working with Counselor Walzak on it. But I never got any other complaints, but I know they
No.
mostly call you.
Yeah.
So there are other people that are.
No, it was just basically
Okay,
her.
yeah, I
But
understand.
I think,
I mean,
with the other residents on the street, there were discussions.
yeah.
You know, with that
Hey,
particular.
you gotta be recognized by the chair. We
Oh, I'm
can't
so
have
sorry.
these cross conversations,
Yes,
please.
Okay.
Fred?
I'm all set.
Yeah, through the chair to our attorney. Whatever, you know, goes forward, it wouldn't resolve the issue with this particular one,
No.
because it would be grandfathered. I mean, like with electronic signs, where we introduced an ordinance, but if somebody already had a sign prior to that ordinance, it would remain there. Is that correct?
You are correct. And if you wanted me to draft an ordinance, you'd have to give me some direction. So I'm gleaning from the conversation that this would only pertain to business, commercial property that abuts residential. Is that a fair statement?
I think so, yeah.
It's not residence to residence.
Well, that,
I don't know.
Because, you know,
You'd never be able to
that could
manage
be a
that.
problem too.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Motion to place on file?
Yes, motion to place on file. Roll call?
Counselor Sillton,
Yeah.
Did we have any public input other than Counselor
Yeah, well, I
Walzak?
think he was the only one that had his hand up, was Mr.
Else?
Walzak. I don't think anybody else had anything to say on this one.
Counselor Sillton,
Counselor
Yes.
Lopez, does she have anything she wanted to add?
Who's that?
Counselor Lopez, is there anything you wanted to add?
Can't hear you if you don't talk to them.
Counselor Lopez, is there anything you wanted to add? All right.
I have no further comments. I'm having some technical difficulties. I can hear you, but I think there's some difficulties from the other end.
Talk too fast.
Counselor Sillton,
Yes.
Crumpets,
Yes.
Philbos,
Yes.
Labrie,
Yeah.
Roy.
Yes. Unanimous vote to, place on file. That doesn't mean that, the attorney won't follow up on it, but right now, it's going on file because we don't have anything specific to vote really on at this point. Thanks. Be it ordered that a DPW install missing stop signs at the intersection of Old Lyman Road and Ludlow Road. Chris? Mary Beth, you have anything you want to say about
Yeah,
that?
thanks. There's a resident that indicated that there were traffic issues that they felt at the corner of Old Lyman Road and Ludlow Road. And what they've recommended is that there's possibility of having a four-way stop sign. Right now, there's two stop signs. Doug Ellis, the city engineer, and I went out there. We looked at it, and he's indicated that the stop signs that are there are ready. They're already installed, and there's no need for any additional stop signs. So that's been researched and looked at, and I've informed the resident that Mr. Ellis and I went out there, and they seem to be satisfied with your opinion, Mr. Ellis, and your investigation. Thank you.
Any comments on any of it? Public input, yeah.
First of all, I want to make sure the record is correct. When I was city councilor, one of the signs, not on the cemetery side, but on the other side, was knocked down. And I had the sign and the post replaced. In fact, if you go there, you can still see the stub that's still on the ground from the replaced sign. I'm not sure what missing signs are there, but there's no missing signs since I put the last sign in. So I'm not sure why this order is even being filed. In regards to the other thing about four-way stop sign, what a disaster that would be. Everybody would be coming at the same time and nobody would know who's next. So please reject that. That's ridiculous.
Councilor Tillotson, if I could just respond. It is being rejected at the recommendation of the city engineer. I don't think that we're in favor of adding at this time a four-way stop sign. But there has been a lot of concern in regards to traffic and speeding, and the resident wanted something to be looked at in regards to this particular incident.
It's my understanding that this has been taken care of,
Yes, it is.
so we'll place it on file.
Public, is there anybody else in the public?
Any other public input? I think that was the public input. Anybody else?
So do we want, you don't want to
Motion
place it
to
on file,
deny?
do you want to reject it?
Well, we'll place it on file, because this way here, somebody can refer to it and do something with it down the road.
I think they need an ordinance to do that.
That's correct. They have all the information on here to know what they're gonna be dealing with. Was the suggestion of the attorney to put them on place on file. That way there, if anybody wants to see it, they can go look at it.
All right.
You gotta be transparent. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we gotta take a roll call, yeah.
Counselor
Take a
Tillotson,
roll call, yes.
Crumpets,
Yes.
Philbos,
Yes.
Labrie,
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
The vote was unanimous to place on file. That way there, if somebody wants to refer back to it, we'll have it in our records. That was the attorney's intent, to make, put it on file. Okay, the next order of business is the, Number five, be it ordered that the ordinance committee meet to discuss public notification on issues involving one-way streets. Okay, I came up with some concepts that I have seen being used over the last 30 or 40 years. I'll read them and then we can discuss them. The one-way streets. The counselor consults with the DPW, the fire department, and the police department to see if a one-way street designation for all or part of a street is beneficial to the area. The counselor or the requesting constituents or both collect signatures from residents to be affected by the proposed ordinance. Third, the counselor then decides whether to file a proposed ordinance. This is the process that I used and was used as long as I can recall. I think if you follow this outline, you will get a better picture as to how many people are in favor of it and how many people are not in favor of it. we never limited the number because you never know how many streets are gonna be affected by it. I think there's close to 50 houses on Anson Street. So then if you go a few further here, there, whatever, you could come up maybe 200, people who would be involved and affected by it. So that's the reason why I didn't come up with a number of streets. It's not like a zoning ordinance where you have 300 feet, that's in the law. But, one-way streets are never popular in all the years that I've been here. They're very difficult to get one, through where people are all happy. But at least if you follow this outline, you know what you got into. And, if you feel as though the majority is one way or the other, then you don't have to file. This is just a suggestion. There's no, this is not in an ordinance format. The question reads, let's see here, 5, discuss issues involving one-way streets. And this is what I came up with, to have something to begin with as a discussion. It's not cast in stone, but at least it tells the counselor what he's up against, if he wants to do a good job and make sure that, he's fairly gone out to the neighborhood. It may be 10 streets in some places, and maybe 5 streets that are gonna be affected by it. So the number of streets would be very difficult to come up with. So anyway, that's where we're at. Any public input, please, first? Since this is an issue that I know is dear to everybody's heart.
Hi, I'm Gary Stamborski. Recently wasn't communicated as Councilor Tillotson suggested, which would have been great. I wanted to hear what was going to be discussed when I saw it on the agenda, and I was just going to offer some things that I had read at the meeting we were at. What I learned through the process is probably more than most people want to learn, other than our engineers, because they love this stuff. But what I believe I learned is there's nothing specific in the city other than the process that you just laid out, which I guess for whatever reason wasn't memorialized or wasn't always done, but it makes perfect sense. But and then I was told by one of the engineers in the city, there's nothing really published with Mass DOT, but what I found really easily was the US DOT, and they call it like a traffic calming primer. So it's not just for one ways, but in the situation we went through, it was pretty clear it was for traffic calming. So I just wanted to offer it up to show,
Sure.
to show folks.
If you give it to our secretary, we'll be glad to take it. We'll put it part of this meeting. Frank?
Yeah, so just so we're correct here, Mr. Stamborski just said that's the way it's been and wasn't followed. That's not how it's been. That was the way some people did it, but it's not the way our process has been done. Our process has been done.
The process was done, in my experience, and I've been here a long time.
No, I'm saying, Jim, in your experience has been done, but we have no rules or nothing on it right now. If I can, I'm just going to finish on this. So we had a meeting, and I want to bring this up about a month ago, Dan, 3 weeks ago. We had a meeting with the police chief, the fire chief, the DPW, the engineering department, Dan Garvey, myself, and Councilor Costello regarding exactly what you're talking about, Jim. And one of the tasks we asked them to do is to do, within the next 3 months, come back with some ideas. And the DPW wanted some time to come up with some ideas of, you mentioned, Jim, some streets might have 10 streets, some might want to do 15 streets. Well, I don't think that we should be judging by, I want 10 streets, that one wants to be 20 streets. So we asked her to do a task of what's good, not just for that, because we have to also look at our issues we had recently with closing off streets and all that. So she wants time to, she couldn't make it here tonight, she called me. She wants some time to put something together for all the city council to look at. Her idea of what the process of the diameter of the area to be done.
Well, I've got all those people in here. I got the DPW, the police department, and the fire department.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you want,
No, I have no problem with what you're saying. I mean, I'll just give that to them and they can incorporate this into what they want to do.
right, and I'm just, my point I'm trying to make is, she brought up a good point was, we got to incorporate a lot of other things in there because we'll be going to doing this one for this for this, how many feet is this one? If we can incorporate one for all.
You're never gonna happen.
All right, I think,
Just a point of information, you're never gonna happen because every neighborhood is different. They're all different. Where there's two-family homes in some part of our city.
agreed,
and- yeah,
Jim.
But anyway,
Jim, I agree with you, but my point is, we should let the DPW, the engineer, let them look at giving us the idea what the format should be. I agree with you, the process of what you want to do,
yeah.
but the footage in that should be a standard for all of us to follow, not just, you know,
Well,
three
that's
streets
what
here.
this was supposed to be.
Yeah.
This would be one suggestion. And we can refer this to to what the committee you're talking about?
No, it's actually not good. It was just to get together because there was just too many people that there was too much emotions put into this. We were just trying to say, hey, departments, what can we do to help all the neighborhoods and come up with that? And then what we can do, Jim, is send it to your ordinance committee after that to review it.
Well,
'Cause you can have another public-
Probably go to the rules committee, because, you know, I mean, go to the rules committee if we want to make it permanent, give
Okay.
somebody an idea, that'll be part of the record in the
All right,
rules.
I'll send it to
Jim.
rules.
Excuse me, can we let Mr.
Thanks to Mr.
Tamborski
Tamborski.
finish? He
Oh,
was
I'm
not
sorry.
done with public input when we cut him off.
Yeah,
Glad I made such a presence. Thank you.
yeah.
I apologize, go ahead.
So,
Sorry.
well, I went over there to hand this off, so I probably got distracted.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
So again, I would just offer, there is so much in this that would be so helpful. It talks about a lot of the things that we're
Yeah, that's
referencing.
fine. We'll add
Um,
this to it.
Yeah, it literally talks about, you know, looking at the area impacted and getting to the root of the issue. So in our example, we know people are trying to get around Memorial Drive. So maybe there's things that could be done there. It talks about, you know, the recommended through some handbook of engineers, percentage of people that should be surveyed and how many should come back. So I think there's a lot of good information. If I could, I would just give a copy to Doug too, because it'd be a shame to try to reinvent the wheel when it's kind of already been done for folks. You can certainly modify it. As a member of the community, I volunteer on the zoning board of appeals. I worked in operations for many years, left as an officer, executive officer at Mass Mutual, all operations, compliance, regulatory bodies, state, federal. I worked for the Marine Corps years ago in logistics installation. I'd be happy as a resident to volunteer my time to work with Doug or anybody else to help make this happen, so people could have a better experience. So that's really all I want us to offer.
Mr. Tilton,
Yeah.
I just want to thank the Stamborskis for their suggestion right from the beginning in regards to, this situation. I feel bad. I didn't go out a lot of streets, and I apologize for that. You know, I feel bad about that. I just did, the certain areas. I was, and I'm glad that we're trying to nail down how far, and I appreciate your efforts because of your activism. You know, we can button this up a little so that we're going to have more precise
There's a lot of.
information. And, again, I apologize. I didn't go 4, 5, 6 streets.
I agree.
I wasn't sure. I knew that the ordinance for zone changes was 300 feet. And that's not that much, you know, that's not that much. So thank you for bringing that information to us. And I appreciate, your input and your time on your research. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Borski, I appreciate your apology, but I don't appreciate that you're not sorry enough to try to correct the process that you kind of made a mess of, and to acknowledge the 82% of the neighborhood that is not in favor of it. So I'd appreciate it if you would take actions to recognize the majority of the neighborhood that is against it and valid safety reasons that we have given lots of information about. And I would appreciate that. But I do appreciate the apology, and I do believe that next time you'll do better, but I hope that this time you'll correct the mess that you've made. Thank you.
Yeah, my concern is the process as well. I know the committee met in May and voted at that time to approve this particular ordinance. Yet the only people at this meeting were the people from the 6 residents. Nobody else knew about the meeting. Nobody else had any opportunity to speak their piece. Democracy works when all taxpayers have a voice, and that evening, everyone did not have a voice. Thank you.
Lisa Bienvenue, 34 Everett Street. I'm not in that neighborhood. I have been listening to this dialogue at these meetings for a while. I think it's great that Councilor Laflamme is and Councilor Tillotson are talking about making a process for doing this, so that there is a process that people can follow in place. I think that the rules that came from the USDOT, there are a lot of things. I did see that. I know about that for one-way streets, but there's more to that dialogue. There's a lot to this dialogue, which I believe that the superintendent of the DPW had been talking about. There's a lot of focus these days coming through the infrastructure bill on quieting streets, on changing traffic patterns, on changing the way we think about how streets are constructed. And I know the city is going to be starting to do, Lee Pouliot is finally doing a plan for the complete streets, which is under Mass DOT, to try to get some funding under those projects. And there's a lot to this, more than most of us probably realize, and more than, what we feel good about in a neighborhood, because what we feel good about in a neighborhood is maybe not it may be the best thing, but it may not be the best thing for the safety of the neighborhood. And I think it's great that the city is thinking about how they're going to be constructing streets and doing traffic on streets so that it frees up the police department, which we know is much better staffed, but is not fully staffed, so that all of their time is not spent on traffic enforcement, but is spent on community policing, so that everyone feels safe, and then we don't hear about nasty things happening on the news, and we don't have terrible traffic accidents. So I really appreciate the fact that the committee is looking at the process of how they do things and not saying, we're not just going to keep doing things the way we've done them in the past, that you're being introspective to say we can always improve what we do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank everybody who spoke tonight. I appreciate, Councilor Costello for bringing this forward. I think it's good that we're having a discussion on this. We can improve transparency. I just want to defend Councilor Costello a little bit. I just want to let the public know too. The city did notify some people. I know it wasn't enough in this case, but it wasn't necessarily Councilor Costello's fault. This affects a large area, and it's also her first term as city councilor. You know what I mean? It's impossible to know exactly who's going to get the notification. I remember my first term, somebody asked me for no parking on one side of the street, and Councilor LaBrie warned me. Did you talk to everybody on the street? And I said, well, I don't think I need to. And then the meeting was a disaster for me, right? And so, it's just important for the public to understand that this is not an easy seat to learn how to do that. So I just hope that there's some kind of barrier there, some kind of leniency there. In terms of the one-way street, I have a lot of respect for you, Gary. I'm sorry I haven't been able to reach you yet. I served with you on his own board of appeals for a long time, and Councilor Walzak, I have a lot of respect for you as well. It's just, me personally, and again, this is not my neighborhood, it's not my ward, I'm not the ward councilor, but I tend to support the neighborhood in a lot of issues, but it's very hard for me to not support the one-way, because it just seems like the safe thing to do. That's why I've supported the one-way street. Again, I'm still willing to meet you out there, Gary. I'm sorry I haven't been able to connect with you yet. I've been busy with things in my ward. I am willing to meet you out in that area, but it's just, I just wanted to make that point that what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm talking to Gary. I'm talking to Gary, not Frank. Yeah, I'm talking to Gary. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that, all right, I'll leave it up. Thank you. Sure. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. My suggestion is that we take our report and refer it to the committee that you are talking about? I don't, what, has it got a name yet?
No, Jim, so it's not a committee, first of all, and the reason it wasn't a committee is, I didn't have to publicize, it was just a department head meeting with some. So I refer it back to the ordinance, so when we get that information, I want to send it to ordinance, so the ordinance committee can have something to work with that other report.
As long
So
as it's in ordinance form.
that's correct, we'll make sure
We don't
it
need
is.
more discussions.
All right.
We need.
Well, I think it's important that we get the information that we received, that, the DPW and the engineer look into.
Well,
No.
what we'll do then is we'll place it on file. That way there, anybody who wants that
Right.
information will become part of this meeting.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
and I'll put it with your meeting, Jim.
So if you place it on file, it's not coming back to ordinance.
No, it's gonna be on file, but if somebody wants to go take it out of the file, they can refile it.
We'll have to
Right,
refile.
once we get the information, I can put an order in to take it out of the file and put all this information in for a public hearing.
If we just get rid of it, we won't have it, you know.
How about to call the chair?
No,
we
I'd
don't have to
rather,
refile
I'd
it.
rather move it into the place on file rather than, I got enough stuff on the call
Yeah,
out
sure.
chair.
Because once all that information is together, we can have the public
Yeah.
hearing.
Sure.
While we're on the subject of one-ways and Old Lyman Road and so forth and so on, why can't that road is like 40 feet, why can't that be widened? Well, there's no reason it couldn't be widened. I mean, there's only like 40 feet that's in question, and I've been up there the other day, and if that 40-foot section was widened, you wouldn't have a problem. Well, it all started with the area was being used as a cut-through a lot. Started as a parking ordinance, and when I went out there and I looked at it, I measured the street was only 16 to 17 feet wide, which is where I suggested that we look in making it a one-way. Wrong in saying that there's only like a 40-foot section that's 16-foot area? It's a bit longer than that, but, no, it's like 250 feet, something on that order. I saw about 40, no more than 50 feet that has to be widened to make. It's a good stretch, about, my recollection is about 200. Okay.
Any other questions on this? Okay, we'll move on.
Motion to put on file? Yep.
Yeah, but roll call first.
Right.
Counselor Stilton?
Yes.
Crumpets?
Yes.
Philbos?
Yes.
Labrie?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Number 6.
Yep.
Thank you. All right.
Be it ordered that the new directional signs be placed at the bend of Liverviere Drive near 111 Liverviere Drive. Mrs. Costello?
Thank you. This has already been corrected. A resident approached me. There was some damage done, and the city DPW corrected it immediately. So there's no further action required. Doug Ellis and I, again, went out, and he's looked at this, and it's been corrected. I want to thank Mr. Bollier and Mr. Ellis for correcting it even before the meeting. They corrected this immediately. Thank you.
We'll place on file. That way there, if anybody has any questions, we have a record that it was looked at and it has been completed. All over. You want to speak? Oh, nope. You can sign it.
I have to come up here and defend my record, but I'm not sure why this order even came. First of all, 111 La Riviere Drive is not even on a curve. Okay, there are two houses on that street, 98 and 97, okay? When I was city councilor, those people on that street asked me to put up two signs. One of the signs said, slow children, because they had children at 97. The other sign sticks on the same pole, says slow hidden driveway. Because when you come around the corner, the first thing you hear is a driveway. So those are two things I did for the neighbors. At the same time, I put a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit at the beginning of the street, okay? Also, back in 2019, I had an electric light, put a street pole with a light right on that curve. And at the same time, and Doug Ellis knows this, directional signals were put there at the same time, correct? The directional signals have been always... Okay, they've always been there. They've always been there. There's nothing that's been changed, nothing that's been fixed. Everything's been there since day one, since we put it in. So I'm not sure why this order's here, but it's kind of unusual that you put, all this effort in and you see an order like this placed and there's no validity to it at all. I'm not sure. It's sort of a fictitious order. Thank you.
Motion to place on
No,
file.
she wants to speak.
Oh, okay.
I just have a question. I'm just, Laura, again, piggybacking on his. I legitimately don't understand, like, if she has already talked to Doug and they've worked it out ahead of time and resolved something off, why does it make it onto the ordinance? I literally do not understand why it's on here. And there was another one too, the second one or something, I think, where they had already worked it out. So why is it an ordinance? I really don't understand why it made it to this. So I'm learning about the process here. So can someone answer that question?
Every counselor has the right to file ordinances, that they feel are important to the agenda.
Oh, I understand that, but I guess if she talked to a person, or not just Mary Beth, but if any of you talked to a person, and then you talked to an expert, supposedly, and you worked it out already, why would it be brought to the ordinance committee when it's already been worked out? I guess I'm just confused by that.
Right?
Yeah, if I can, that happens several times for all of us, because what happens is sometimes you end up, the DPW or someone calls you and say, can I meet you out there? Whether it's Dan done it many times, he's done a lot for his ward, and then you go to pull it back, but it's already on the agenda, because we have to have them in on a Thursday, and then it may not be put, it goes to our full board, and then that committee person sets up the meeting. So we cannot pull it out of there. They can only say it after the fact. So it could be 3 weeks before it even gets to the end of ordinance or zoning or any of those boards. So I could put one in at the beginning of the month, and it might, it'll be going to the full board to send it to that committee, ordinance committee, but it doesn't get to the ordinance committee for 3 more weeks. So it's in there, and in the process, they could have worked something out. That's what happens sometimes. Just an FYI. Thank you.
Motion to place on file?
Call the roll, please.
Counselor Tilton?
Yes.
Rapids?
Yes.
Philbos?
Yes.
Labrie?
Yes.
Roy?
Yes. I'm just gonna grab it away from you.
Edmund Street, the next order of business is Edmund Street, north side, 75 feet from St. James Avenue, parking here at the corner. Red Crampets.
That'd be me. There are gonna be some changes to this, kind of, similar to the process that, Councilor Lamb had mentioned about, particularly on a summer schedule, we have less meetings. I had a call shortly before the deadline about no parking. I unfortunately copied and pasted from another order and forgot to make some changes, to put it in. But this should actually read, instead of, north side, it should be south side, or 63 feet, instead of 75 feet.
You want to take it and write it, so.
Yeah, because when I filed the order, I had spoken to Doug, but I knew he wasn't gonna have time to go out and measure it, so the idea was, to at least get it into committee, so it would be here tonight, so it wouldn't be delayed by another month. This is, Rivier.
Got the wrong one. There you go.
I know Doug went out and measured it. This was at the request of a constituent because people are parking on both sides. If you're trying to pull out on St. James Avenue, or particularly if you're trying to pull in, and there was a car already on Edmund Street, you would have difficulty getting off of St. James Avenue. So, Doug, as he went out and measurements, but. Yeah, I did a field measurement, 65 feet is the distance I would do that for. That's up to the very first driveway. That's 65 feet. Okay. This is on the south side. South side. Those, changes, then that way it can go to our full meeting, next Thursday, and then, can go to I'll read the corrected order, for.
As amended, yeah.
As amended for no parking, Edmund Street, south side, 65 feet from St. James Avenue. No, parking prohibited here to corner.
Motion to place on, motion to approve.
There you go.
Counselor
So is there
Tillotson?
anybody from public input for this? I think so, but figure it out. Nope, no public input, so, I'm sorry, go ahead, Carla.
Counselor
You're running the
Tillotson?
meeting.
Counselor Tillotson?
Yes.
Crumpets?
Yes.
Phobos?
Yes.
Labrie?
Yes.
Roy?
Yes.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes, July 19th.
Counselor Tillotson?
Yes.
Crumpets?
Yes.
Phobos?
Yes.
Labrie?
Yes.
Roy?
Yes.
So moved.
Counselor Tillotson?
Yes.
Crumpets?
Yes.
Phobos?
Yes.
Labrie?
Yes.
Roy?
Yes. Thank you all. Adios, amigos. Have a safe Labor Day weekend.